Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, as always, Ben Thomas. You know, there are very few moments I can recall in the last 5 or so years where I have looked at something and I have said, wow, or been surprised or impressed really to that point. And I had the opportunity to see some new technology at InfoComm here called HP Dimension, really that really kind of blew me away. And our conversation today isn't specifically about that product, but it's about sort of what that idea now means for us as an industry. It means, okay, we've moved beyond sort of conferencing and technology as a utility. How do we expand and evolve those experiences? What does that next generation look like? And to have that conversation, of course, the guy who actually blew me away himself was the person I had the chance to chat on the other side of the screen with, and that's Brian Phillips. Brian, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks so much for having me, Ben.
You know, Brian, it's interesting, right? I think that we, as an industry, sometimes innovate for technology's sake, right? We're really good at building, you know, better cameras, louder microphone. I mean, all kinds of stuff like that, right? But very rarely, historically, has our industry said, you know what, we're going to focus exclusively on quality and experience and designing for the user. And it's okay if we have to partner and collaborate with other different people. But it was incredible to see whenever you and I had the chance to talk sort of in 3D. It's very difficult to describe, by the way, if you haven't seen the experience, how the user experience of the technology conferencing system that we're talking about really was designed to make it functional and usable and make that user experience unbelievable. Talk to me a little bit about sort of how that goes into that design process. We'll dig into specifics about some of it later, but I think that that's probably a good point for us to start is talk about how the industry has totally changed really to evolve to better serve our end users in this case.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's pretty amazing how far things have come in collaboration, right? I mean, you think it was not that long prior to COVID, I guess, that we're all still mostly using, I don't know, traditional video conferencing codecs, making sit calls, and Zoom and Teams are just kind of starting to emerge. And like everything has changed in the last 5 or 6 years, right? And things have come so far around experiences. I mean, it's kind of table stakes now that we've got, these smart camera kind of experiences that are allowing people to be seen more up close. And now we're getting more and more kind of multi-camera experiences. You're seeing it from the best angle, no matter where you're looking in the room. But to your point, it's not that often that we see a tremendous kind of leap forward in terms of the experience. And that's what's, I think, so exciting about this. And what's really starting to, I think, highlight one of the pain points that so many people have when it comes to collaboration, which is, it is fantastic that Zoom and Teams and Google Meet and all the other video services, along with hardware from like HP Poly, can deliver these great experiences in meeting rooms. And now we can see each other as well as hear each other clearly. But it still doesn't fully replicate an in-person experience, right? I mean, most of us aren't walking away from a Zoom or a Teams call like, oh, wow, it feels like we were just there in the same room. Like, it's a great high quality conversation. We can understand each other. We can see facial expressions and body language and all that. But there still is this distinct difference with actually perceiving that we had an experience that was like we were together, which is still really important, right? I mean, you think about even just from a personal context, like, you know, why do we want to still get together in person with our families or with our friends, right? We could just do a Zoom call with our friends. Why not just do a Zoom call? Because there's something that's just tangibly different about being together. There's a sense of like connectedness and trust that comes with being together that's not quite the same when you're over a video call. And so with the advancements in technology and with where AI has come, we're now at a point from a technology standpoint where we can actually deliver an experience that much more closely approximates an in-person experience than what we've ever been able to do before. And again, we were at InfoComm and we're kind of showing it off to people there. This HP Dimension with Google Beam for the first time. It just, seeing their kind of jaws drop and seeing them really recognize that, wow, that is just a different kind of experience than I've ever seen before. That's much more like being in person. It's pretty exciting to see sort of the wheels spin as people are thinking about the possibilities.
You know, it's interesting because you talked a little bit about sort of the psychology behind a lot of it, right? And if you would have even asked me probably a year or two ago, I would have said the next generation of conferencing technology is going to be about fidelity, right? Obviously, you know, higher quality pickups, cameras, whatever. Obviously, facial recognition. There's so many different things. I don't know that I would have put my money on sort of the spatial side of things, and I dare I say immersive. it could be considered, right? Immersive sort of maybe an overstatement for it, but it is practical. And you talk about sort of the communication side of it, right? And the immediate applications where I think you and I actually talked about this out there is starting sort of in that one-to-one enterprise, right? We talked about VC funding pitches and all these different use cases and trainings and applications. And I want to kind of start and ask sort of about that enterprise application to start, because obviously it'll fall down. But how are you seeing people leverage technology like this in those environments, especially where sort of that psychology piece is really, really important?
And that, I think, for a lot of the initial primary use cases, that is where a lot of it falls. When you think about those conversations where, gosh, if I could just like snap my fingers and magically teleport myself to your location so we could just talk in person, I would do it. But obviously our technology is not quite there yet. Man, it'd be practical for me to get on a plane. So we'll do the regular video call. But boy, it would add so much value if we could just be in the same room and talk face to face. I think that's where this technology initially starts to really leverage itself. When you think of, man, maybe it's the sensitive contract negotiation or the executives trying to hammer out like that acquisition and working on the final terms, or maybe it's, doing performance reviews and things like that come up quite a bit. The other thing too, though, that I think is interesting, and the more that I've used it myself and the more that we've kind of talked to customers about how they envision this being used in their enterprises in a way that's different than just regular video calls, is even things as simple as just manager-employee one-on-ones. That sounds pretty simple. Most of these aren't super high stakes conversations. Not every one of those is about, the performance review or getting a raise. But I think the key becomes building that sense of trust and empathy and depth of a relationship, which I know sounds like this sort of super fuzzy thing, right? But it's really true. I think one of the challenges of more remote working and more hybrid working and dispersed teams is when you're not co-located with your team, sometimes there's a tendency to feel like a little bit of almost, I'm like a contractor. Like I'm an employee here, but I don't really feel connected with these people. I talk to them on Zoom and maybe we'll chit chat about our weekend, but like, I don't really feel a connection with these people. And I don't know, if I got a better offer somewhere else, maybe I would just jump ship in a way that maybe didn't happen as much when we were all co-located together. And it feels like we're all kind of fighting for the same common goal and we're really kind of connected as a team. And that's where I think that sense of realism and the spatial depth and true kind of in-person experience makes a real difference around connectivity. And that's why we have a lot of, say, HR leaders who are really interested in this, because they're trying to reduce employee retention. How do we keep our best people? How do we have our teams feel more connected with each other and not feeling like these independent renegades just kind of ready to jump off to the next thing when another interesting opportunity comes along? It's because this kind of technology, being able to grow that sense of depth and connectedness, is so crucial. And that's where even things like just manager-employee one-on-ones, I think, can be in some ways as crucial a use case to this as the big executive, negotiation, because it's what helps teams feel like they are binded together and working towards a common goal.
The thing really that struck me is, we've all sort of seen the VR headset experiences, this and that. There's always sort of some sort of technical barrier there. Typically, it's normally a wearable, right? And the thing that I really, really was struck by, especially once I sat down and you and I started talking, was this idea that technology now no longer was an inhibitor, it was a platform. And obviously you can look around and look behind, and that the whole parallax conversation is a totally different one, because there is no parallax, which was trippy as could be. It was amazing. But technology in its purest form in this case is now no longer, oh, hey, I've got to log on to this, make sure my framing's right here. You walk in, you sit down, you hit a button, and you're good to go.
That was one of the key design criteria behind this. As soon as somebody has to put on a wearable or something like that, it's just, we all know that's just going to be a no-go for most people. I mean, shoot, most people, when they go in a conference room, if the camera's zoomed all the way out, we can't even get them to bother going to the touch panel to be able to turn on the auto framing or manually zoom the camera, right? Like, let alone are they going to walk in or be in their home office and it just isn't practical, right? So a huge part of that experience was just the sit down and it just works and it's just like you're in the same room. It was that almost as, I think, as important as the technology itself and all the amazing light field displays and 3D rendered images and AI and all this stuff. Just having it as simple as you sit down and it just works is so crucial to not having the technology be a barrier to the experience.
It reminds me a lot of, we obviously you have a great relationship with Poly. It reminds me a lot of really when the first Polycom style systems came out, and you were able on a large screen with a great, decently resolutioned camera to look and have intentional sort of conversations with other. It felt like sort of the first time I saw that. And what's interesting is that obviously scaled out really, really well. But I'm curious right now, sort of obviously the price point is can be prohibitive for some people, right? And there's no reason to pretend like it's not, but there's scale there, right? And you use things like Moore's law, technology eventually becomes cheaper and more scalable. What is sort of the scalability look like here?
100%. This is a first iteration, right? So we're initially getting it to market. List price is like $24,999 for the device. And so we know that puts it in kind of a certain segment of kind of enterprise customers. But really, these initial steps are about proving out the concept, starting to scale it. But absolutely, the vision is that people can use these from wherever they are. I mean, today it's designed around more the one-on-one type experience. You can use it for more than that. You can use it with even multiple people in the room or multiple people on the far end, but it's being used as just a regular, say, Zoom room or regular Google Meet room at that point, right? But for that true, like that, immersive, so to speak, experience, yes, we absolutely recognize you've got to get it to multiple people in the room, but also beyond just rooms in offices. So many of us are working remote. The whole thing about hybrid working, right, is I'm at home sometimes, and I'm also in the office a couple of days a week. And so how can I make sure I can get this experience from anywhere? And it's not like, oh, you and I really need to talk on Thursday because that's the next time I'm in the office and able to be in front of one of these systems. So how do we scale that technology down in a way you can use it in a personal context? You can use it in all sorts of different environments at a very cost-effective price point. To your point, Moore's law, advancements in technology are eventually going to get us there. Right now, we're kind of in that proving out the concept standpoint so that we can really start to scale it for those much more mass adoption types of use cases.
Well, look, and you're working with a great partner in Google who's been able to do that for a while. And that's sort of my last question, too, is obviously, you hear a name like Google and even Microsoft sort of similarly in the last number of years find their way sort of into this web conferencing space and things like that. But I want to ask sort of about the value of partnerships maybe outside of our industry, right? It's very easy to say, oh, I work with this provider and this speaker manufacturer and all these different things. But why is it so important to sort of have that expertise from a technology standpoint and partnership standpoint, maybe out of people who always attend InfoComm every year?
Yeah. And even like the Google team that specifically has been working on this project is not part of like the Google Meet team, right? It was really born out of Google Labs, and they really saw kind of this vision for being able to deliver this kind of really amazing lifelike 3D experience. And they had this awesome kind of cloud and software technology for that, but they knew they needed a hardware partner to be able to scale that. So that is where I think it is super helpful for different organizations with different types of expertise. They've got so much expertise around the cloud and AI and a lot of those core technologies that are in this. We've got so much expertise in video and audio experiences, in delivering hardware at scale. So it really was, in my opinion, kind of the perfect marriage there. But I do think it is interesting in that, like I said, this was not necessarily a collaboration team that was like inventing something new. It was kind of a different team in Google Labs. It really had a vision to do something different that wasn't typically part of a regular collaboration organization. And I think we've seen at times in the past where that's where a lot of the innovation leaps can come from. And they've been such an amazing partner in this because they've been able to kind of really bring that vision to life in a way that I think very few companies could. And even been able to roll it out internally within some of their own users. That's one thing that's really kind of interesting with this. They've been working on this on the Google side for, over a decade now. So this has not just come out of nowhere, right? They've been developing it for a long time. It was called Google Project Starline, if you're familiar with that from before. Right now it's HP Dimension with Google Beam. But one of the nice benefits is they've been able to actually see and measure the results of this. They've got a pretty advanced, sophisticated kind of UX research team, and they've actually deployed a lot of these systems, like early prototypes, within Google and used them just for regular meetings. So it's not just for like technology trials, but telling their employees, developers, and people working in other parts of the org, use these, and we're going to survey you and kind of see what the response was. And they've actually gone in and even recorded some of the meetings so they can get some of the reactions. It's really interesting. They've seen so much actual tangible evidence of more turn taking during conversations, like 28% better memory recall of what was said, right? So again, just the fact that they've been able to kind of research this for so long, have real tangible data points behind the benefits, and then we've been able to partner with them to really bring it to market in a scalable way. I think it's kind of pretty powerful testimony of how companies collaborating across this industry can bring magical things to life.
I even love that you brought things like, corporate outcomes into that conversation, right? You talk about how even 10 to 15% higher retention in the onboarding process. How much time does that save you on the back end on retraining and, missed opportunities and things like that? So the play in the conversation really is much larger than the technology. Obviously, big fan of the technology. And I'll tell you too, Brian, what's cool about this conversation, and I think a lot of people should know this, I don't sell any sponsorships to this show. So nobody pays me to say, hey, this is a cool product. This is great. This genuinely, I was blown away by it. And Brian, I've got to give you a big thank you, not only for myself, but I know many people in the industry, that you have done such incredible work on. And I know there's engineers and technicians and all sorts of people that are in that pipeline as well. But you got a big thank you from me and many of the folks who saw us. So great work, Brian.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And yeah, it, like you said at the very beginning, it's something that's almost impossible to describe, right? You got to really sit in front of it to really understand it. So hopefully people listening, people watching get a chance to see a demo of it. I guarantee you have never seen anything like it. It's really incredible, impossible to describe, and I think will change the way you look at what collaboration really can be.
I don't know. Consider this my official petition to get one in Dallas down here in our office. I don't know. Maybe we'll figure it out. We'll turn it into a showroom or something. But Brian, I tell you, thanks so much for coming on again, and thank you for your work on this. We love having you, and we'll find a reason to get you back on soon.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you everybody else for tuning in. Be sure to check us out next time on the show.